Hello there, and welcome back to Grass Me Up, the podcast all about grass, whether that's lawn care or sports turf. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Sharp, the founder of Utrema Limited. And one of the products that we've invented at Utrema that's been exceptionally well received is liquid gypsum. And I just want to start today's podcast, even though we're going to talk about soil structure. I want to start with an apology to a number of customers. And that's every customer that bought a 1 litre bottle of liquid gypsum. I'm afraid you've bought a rubbish product. And that's because we don't sell 1 litre bottles of liquid gypsum until this weekend where we started. And so what people have been doing is they've seen that we sell liquid gypsum, and they've seen alternative sellers who've sort of taken advantage of the fact we don't sell 1 litres and started selling 1 litre, what they claim to be liquid gypsum, for a few pounds less than our 5 litres. And so they've mopped up a fair few thousand customers doing this and taking advantage of our advertising and our sort of approach and selling a product that claims to be liquid gypsum. So it's not ours. It's what these people have done is they've bought in suspension gypsum. So that's a suspension. If you don't know what suspension is, it's a solid pretending to be a liquid. All the solid particles are suspended. They're not dissolved. Why is that a problem? Well, it's 20,000 times less instantly active than our solution-based approach, our novel product. This is a big issue because it doesn't work anywhere near as well. It also doesn't penetrate into the topsoil. Soil is a fantastic sieve, and it will just sieve out all those particles in the suspension. And so the suspension products only work in the first centimetre of the soil, in the O horizon, the organic layer. So that's a big problem there. Also, these companies are claiming really exaggerated, outlandish dose rates for their product. 1 litre treats over 200 square metres. Now, we've launched a 1 litre product this weekend to cut out the sort of bottom feeders and the copycats, but that will only treat 25 square metres. We've not increased the dose rate. We just made it realistic. If you get 1 litre and you've got a small garden, that's for you. Don't buy a 1 litre product and expect it to treat over 200 square metres. It's not. It's got to treat soil, and soil is a big mass. The other problem with suspension-based products is they block filters and they settle out. And these products contain a biocide, a very potent biocide, a synthetic biocide that will harm soil biology, called Cathon. That's a trade name, very much more complicated name than that. The other issue is that they're imported from Australia and then rebottled here in the UK, so they have a massive CO2 footprint, whereas all Utrema products are manufactured here in the UK. So very much an ersatz version of our product, if you know what ersatz means. If you want the effects of a powdered gypsum, don't buy this product. Buy powdered gypsum and dig it in. It will be cheaper. If you want a cheap and nasty version, then choose powdered gypsum. If you can dig it in, then I won't say nasty. It's not going to be a nasty one. It will work, but don't expect instant action. Don't expect it to be easy, and don't be expected to just apply it to lawns. So the difference is clear. Our product is clear. If you buy a gypsum product and it's a milky, almost pinky brown colour, then that's suspension gypsum. That's a copycat product. So apologies if you've bought that 1 litre, tried to save a few quid. Sometimes we get people complaining on our adverts saying our product doesn't work. And when we look into it, they've bought these products from the 2 companies who've sort of taken advantage of our adverts and started selling liquid gypsum. Now, liquid gypsum flocculates clay soils, and that leads us on to soil structure, which is going to be the topic of today's episode of the podcast. So when you have a good soil structure, it's a crumb structure. And the other word for a crumb structure is a granular structure. So almost like a biscuit crumbs. You break a biscuit down, it should look like that. That's the perfect soil structure. Highly permeable. Even clay soils can be granular if they contain the right conditions. So lots of calcium, like we find in liquid gypsum if you add that, low sodium levels, and organic matter, and the glues that are produced by mycorrhiza and other fungi. not fairy ring fungi. They do the opposite. So that produces a fantastic soil structure. Now, when the soil breaks down, you can get what's called massive structure, where it just forms one big clod. And that's the problem. When soils break down, they get compacted. You get this massive structure. Very low permeability, and roots can't grow through it. Water won't go through it. So that's a big issue. And that's what we sort of overcome with liquid gypsum. It allows that to reform the granular structure almost instantaneously. So, and any salts added, they will cause that to degrade back into a massive structure. So any sodium-based products, that's why we always advise not to use sodium products. Now, the other soil structure that might be impeding drainage in your soil is a platy structure. And that's formed when the soil is worked continuously by ploughing or with a rotavator or digging, and it gets smeared at that layer, and that layer then forms a cap. So you get a clay cap. And so your top structure, your first few centimeters might be granular, but you might have this plate underneath that's been worked. And that's why you should never plough, rotivate, dig your soil when it's wet. So we've got customers who say, can I put this product on now? Can I aerate my garden now because it's flooded, it's waterlogged? And I say, no, don't do anything. Don't even look at your lawn when it's wet. Okay? Don't even look at it. Just go somewhere else, get another hobby, come back to your lawn and treat it when it's dried out. Doesn't have to be dry, it just has to be not wet, because otherwise you'll get platy structure. The pictures you'll see on the web looks like Pringles stacked on top of each other, very low permeability. Okay, so that shouldn't be there naturally. You shouldn't get that. You might get a massive structure in the subsoil, and that's a problem if you've got a new build property and the developers have not put the topsoil back. You're left with very clay dominant, low organic matter, massive structure that's not had time to form granular structure. And so adding the liquid gypsum is great there because it gets right to the source of the problem and allows the drainage, allows that massive structure to open up. Other soil structures you might get is blocky. So you might get blocks forming. They're moderately permeable and they're on their way to forming a granular structure. Now you might get columnar or prismatic structures, and almost like Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, that sort of, but on a smaller scale, obviously, and not rock, but soil. And that normally forms further down towards the subsoil or in the subsoil itself. So you shouldn't get that at the surface. But in very dry conditions, you might get the clay cup forming together to form those sorts of columnar or prismatic. You can also get something called aggregate, which is really big chunks, blocks, but that will be extremely permeable, because the water will just flow between the aggregates. So that's soil structure. Often when we think, I talked in my previous episode about soil texture, which is the proportion of sand, silt and clay in the soil, people often call that structure when it's not. That's texture. And this is structure, is what those particles come together to form. So just like in a biscuit, the flour and the sugar and the chocolate chips will form together to form crumbs. What else is in a biscuit? Egg? Yeah, egg. Think of the fungal glues and the organic matter as the egg, the biscuits, the sugar as the sand, and the flour as the clay. There you go. And then they form the granules and that nice crumb structure. And if you added anything like sodium or you compacted that biscuit, then you would get a massive clump, and that would be impermeable to water penetration. I'm trying to think, what would you get if you just like dough that had been baked hard? That's what you want to avoid, isn't it? No one wants to eat but dough that's been baked hard. You want a nice crummy biscuit. Okay, so that's soil structure. A very simple and not very complicated topic, really. There's not much research on soil structure. It will depend on your texture, how easy it is to form that crumb structure. If you've got a really sandy soil, you won't be able to form those crumbs. And again, if you completely clay, it'll take time to add organic matter, add the calcium from things like liquid gypsum. So there you go. All right. Apologies if you've bought a 1 litre liquid gypsum from one of our competitors. We are now selling them on our website, but we're not making outlandish claims. 25 square metres gardens. If you've got a small garden or a small area to treat, then you can buy that. The 5 litre treats 125 square metres, and the 20 litre treats 500 square metres. And if you have got a much larger area, so you're in sports turf, then we can sell you an IBC, 1,000 litres of it. And I think you're talking about 80 litres for a sports pitch or a hectare over the year. So much larger dose rates. In agriculture, we actually only recommend 20 to 40 litres per hectare. And that's because a farmer, say an arable farmer, they are happy with a gradual year-on-year improvement in their soil. Whereas if it's a domestic garden, if we do not solve their problem straight away, then we will get comments on Facebook saying, didn't work. Got one yesterday, didn't work in my garden. Quickly went onto the order CR system, and their order was that they live in the fens in Spalding next to a dike at or very close to or even below sea level. And I'm like, well, you know where you live. And then others, we've had numerous complaints from people who live next door on the new build estate next to Martinmere Wetland Reserve near Blackpool, which is world famous for being a wetland. So I don't know where you think the water's going to go. Something like liquid gypsum is only going to improve drainage when the water has somewhere to go. It only improves the speed of drainage through clay soils. It can't magically make the water disappear. Only a pump really can do that. So, yeah. So I hope you've found that interesting, soil structure, and also our sort of fight against the copycats and the bottom feeders of the internet. If you're successful, you'll always get copycats, isn't it? What was it? It's the biggest form of flattery, is it? Imitation? Yeah. So, yeah. And onwards and upwards, we'll fight them hopefully we'll drive them out with the offer of a 1 litre of our unique product. And if you've got any questions about soil structure, then let me know. I think we're probably going to do one on soil pH next, or soil profiles. So the sort of topsoil, subsoil, organic layer and things like this. Haven't decided yet, but hopefully it'll be a bit of a bigger topic than soil structure, which is quite small. Okay, thank you very much for listening. If you found this enjoyable, please leave a podcast review. But more importantly than that, check out utrema.co.uk. Loads of new products launching all the time, and loads of blog posts. We're also launched a 1 litre nitrogen fertilizer, 1 litre sulfur, and a 1 litre ivy pre-spray for getting control of ground ivy. Because again, people were sort of missing out, smaller users. Those sorts of products were more for sort of like smallholders or commercial users. And so for the smaller gardens, a 1 litre nitrogen, a 1 litre sulfur fertilizer, and a 1 litre ground ivy controlled ivy pre-spray was sort of demanded by the customer base. And I launched them yesterday, and already we've been selling those like hotcakes. My colleagues have been like, but Russell, we haven't even got a label for those products yet in 1 litre form. That's a problem for Monday morning. It's not a problem for today. That's future Russell and future Matthew's problem and future Amy's problem. So, but yeah, if you order those, they will be with you. Our lead times are 5 to 10 working days because we are a manufacturer. Get a lot of people upset because we are not like Amazon. We don't deliver next day. But if you want unique products and you want them direct from the manufacturer, not twice the price because they've gone through a distributor, then that's the price you have to pay, I'm afraid. Sometimes it does take a few days to get to us. Sometimes people phone up and say, if you do not get my product to me by tomorrow, then please cancel my order. And I'm like, well, okay, that's fine. And then you're like, why do you need it by tomorrow? It's like, well, because my garden's flooded. And like, well, you shouldn't really be applying products when your garden's flooded, or, my nephew's coming round, and so the reason they demand the fertilizer is rarely stacks up. Sometimes they're getting work done and they need it, and they're going to put pebbles down and stuff like this, and there is a legitimate reason why people need stuff straight away. If you do need stuff straight away, just give us a ring and we'll probably expedite your order if you're nice to us, rather than demanding. As is life. Sometimes we, in B2B, when people ask for a price, if they're nice to us, we give them a good price. And if they're not nice to us in business to business, we give them a terrible price. because we don't want to work with people we don't like. Don't tell my wife that I turn away business by giving away high prices. But yeah, sometimes I do. That's the beauty of working for yourself. Sometimes you can decide who you work with. All right, I've been waffling on enough. That's been today's episode of Surf Me Up. I'll probably do less about slagging off my competitors on the next episode and just keep it, and less product placement, just keep it about the science. All right, thank you very much for listening to this drivel, and see you again soon. Goodbye.